In a summer where the Mammoth have taken massive steps forward, where is the rebuild now? We're going to talk about it on today's Locked On Mammoth.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined as always by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we're the dynamic duo that brings you Locked On Mammoth. We're going to be here with you all summer long and continuing to talk about what the Mammoth have done, what they're going to continue to do. Still a lot going on, but Robyn, today is a show that's going to span not just this summer, but really several years looking back and even looking ahead, because ever since this team has been the Arizona Coyotes, they went into a rebuilding mode. And our job today is to assess where exactly is this rebuild now.
Yeah, it's really assessing at that point where this team is. I mean, we have been talking, Tom, about the state of the rebuild, the stage that they're in, and how far along, what's left on the schedule. We've gone through all that, but in kind of bits and pieces, and not really in depth, but that's what this show's all about.
It's been a long time since this franchise was a playoff team, and that is what inspired the rebuild. We've talked on previous episodes, but it bears repeating. There was a change, of ownership, first of all. Then there was a change at general manager. John Chayka was out and Bill Armstrong comes in. Then there was another change at ownership, which is how they ended up being the Utah Mammoth. But before we get to that, Bill Armstrong coming in has the pedigree of having been an assistant with the St. Louis Blues, of being a part of a front office that put together a Stanley Cup winning team, and has come to Arizona/Utah now as part of this hockey operations department. And Robyn, you and I were Coyotes before we were ever Mammoth. And if I asked you, in your opinion, think back to when Bill Armstrong came in, the things he said, what he wanted to do, to where it is now, right now, today. Number one, do you believe the rebuild is on track?
That's a good question. Short answer is yes. I do believe it's on track. I feel like they are. They've been making all the right moves. Bill Armstrong's been making all the right moves, and is not trying to rush things too much, I think, which is the very key thing here. And it's interesting when I look at where the team is, I think, especially, Tom, in comparison to that first day, right? When Bill Armstrong did first come in, the Arizona Coyotes at that point, they were struggling. They were. I mean, I think he technically came in right after the Arizona Coyotes made a playoff run, quotes, right? It was the bubble. They made it in off of technicality because it was a play-in game. They beat Nashville, and then they went on to the first round and lost very handedly to Colorado. Whether or not you want to count that as a playoff appearance or not, you could whatever. But after that, and from the season following, is when the rebuild essentially officially began after the 2021 season.
And in a normal year, they weren't a playoff team.
They were. I mean, I thought that year that they were close. I thought they had a lot of things that could potentially get them there, but things fell apart after that, right? I think after everything that happened during that bubble, wherever team was, the 2021 season and the trajectory that they saw things go in that direction, things were different. And to me, Tom, I think the biggest thing was you knew when the rebuild started, and I want to kind of get to that at this point, right? Because I feel like it's a really important thing to add since we're talking about where they are on track, and since I mentioned that first day, we knew when the rebuild officially started, at least this iteration of the rebuild, right? Because there's multiple iterations of the rebuild, but this iteration of the rebuild started when Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland were shipped off to Vancouver for the 9th overall pick in the 2021 NHL draft, which the then Arizona Coyotes selected Dylan Guenther.
Seems like yesterday in a lot of ways, but boy, that was a long time ago.
And it was funny because it was more than that too, right? If you think about the trade that happened, right? Yes, the 9th overall came, but what also came was, I think it was Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, and I think who was the other player in that one? I'm blanking. I'm drawing a blank. But multiple players were involved in that that trade, Tom, and it was essentially what Arizona was doing. What they went on full on. Let's just drop everything and just hit the floor and do whatever we can to get there.
You know, it's kind of interesting the way things go. Coyote fans got impatient quickly a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And this is why it's very interesting. Mammoth fans, you're in a pretty good spot because you don't have that impatience, right? You don't have that annoyance at the fact that they tried and then it failed, and then they tried again and it failed again, and now they're trying a third time and the jury is out. But
Mammoth fans, no, you inherit the team mid rebuild when they're at the good spot when they're finally starting to emerge.
Right. And so that's why I want to talk about where the rebuild is now, Robyn, is because another question I have for you that I get a lot from fans too, and I want to talk about this as well, is we talk about it being on track, but is it a little slow? Is it ahead of schedule? Because I think there's a difference, and on track to me just indicates you're doing what you said you were going to do and you're building this franchise up. But is it taking longer than it should? Because look at the teams that make crazy rapid turnarounds in today's NHL. They're out of the playoffs. They're terrible sometimes. And then they're right back in it 2 seasons later and back in competing. Is it taking too long?
You know, Tom, I feel like that could be a discussion we can have right after this.
And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. Look, you're already following the action, right? So why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, it's fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm watching and placing a same game parlay, I'm watching a baseball game, sometimes I want to see that bet right all the way into the 9th inning. FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you, Locked on Mammoth. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, if you're still here, please subscribe to the podcast. We would absolutely love to have you along for the ride here this summer and into training camp. It's an exciting time. Today, we're talking about where the rebuild is right now with this Mammoth team. Robyn, timeline. What have you done for me lately? Is this taking too long? And again, Mammoth fans may not have a concept of this. And I think it's why it's important that you and I talk about it, because we've been following this team for a pretty long time.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like if you ask an Arizona Coyotes fan, right, they might think this is taking too long because they might not include what I mentioned as the day one, right? That trade as a day one. They might have included as far back to some of the earlier days when
2012 playoff run,
whatever it is, right? Or when, I think what there was one year when they were on towards the bottom of the 2015 draft, I think that guy was towards, because that was the McDavid draft, right? That was the McDavid draft. And Arizona had the 3rd overall. And who did they draft that year? They draft Dylan Strome. He didn't pan out. So what do they have? So it's an interesting thing when you think about that conversation. By the way, a little reminder, who was drafted right after that was Mitch Marner. I know we might be some Arizona fans who might be killing themselves over that decision. not mistaken, that was a Don Maloney pick decision too. So pre-John Chayka too. Anyways, it depends on who you ask. But I will say this. If I use that guideline, Tom, as that day one, I would say that it's the timeline is right around what was expected among most people. Most, I think, who are reasonable, who understand how long a rebuild actually takes, who doesn't have that level of the impatience or whatever. They know that, okay, we need to draft these. We know how long it takes for some of these guys to develop. And again, look at where Dylan Guenther was. He was drafted in 2021. He played games and he got better. He was still had a lot ways to go in 23 and then 24. But now in 2025, you see where he's at, right? And I think that's the important aspect to see. Okay, it takes that long for these guys to develop. And a lot of these other guys are finally getting there. Your Logan Cooley's getting there. You everyone else. So to me, Tom, I feel like it's right on schedule.
And again, with hockey, it takes longer for players to develop. We talk about, Utah is used to the NBA. Players develop much more quickly in the NBA. And there's only 2 rounds in the draft, right? Mm-hmm. So you would assume if a guy's picked, he's going to play. That's kind of the jump from college to the pros is not a huge chasm. In hockey, it's a big leap, whether it's from junior hockey, even other leagues in Europe or U.S. college. It can be a huge leap, and only the exceptional rarities can make it.
Mm-hmm. My favorites, Tom, like little side note, my favorites are always the 7th round NHL draft picks who go to college, go through all 4 years at college. Maybe they work on getting a national championship in the NCAA. Then they make the jump to juniors or not juniors, excuse me. Why did I say? Then they make the jump to the AHL, right? So they're playing for the top developmental league in pro hockey in North America. They outshine everybody. They play super well. Then they make the jump to the NHL, and all of a sudden they become superstars because of that kind of mentality. Because they worked every single day to get there. Those are also rare, but those are also my favorite. I would love to see if we can get one of those, but again, we don't know. The chance of those players coming up are very rare. I've had, I think, 1 or 2 of my favorite players have that history, but I have little expectations for it.
So, Robyn, looking at the franchise, the roster, and where it is now in the lens of right up until this day, as people are seeing this is going to be dropping on Tuesday, July 8th. As of Tuesday, July 8th, is this team at a point where they can basically sit back a little bit and let the seeds they've sown grow, just water the garden occasionally and make sure they take care of it? Or do they really need to continue maintaining and maybe even, I'll keep the analogy going, plant a few new plants, look for a few new varieties? If they let go what they have, let it grow, let it blossom and nurture it, is it enough as of right now? And I know we can't predict 10 years into the future, but right now, do you think it's enough? Do you like where they're at to the point where you're like, you know what? Okay, Utah, this is good enough to continue your upward trajectory?
I think that is a great question. And
I do that. I ask great
questions. Yes, it is a great question. And because it really forces you to think. And think about where this team is and is it good enough? And I'll start with a complete honesty, and I feel like it's like a yes and no answer, right? I feel like at its very core, yes, 100%. I feel like this team has the makings of a future Stanley Cup winning team. However, there always needs to be tweaks. Right? There needs to be, okay, maybe this didn't exactly work out with this player, so we're going to, so maybe we'll move on from you and we'll bring in this player. But these are depth pieces. These are adding, I think sometimes you might do those tweaks at top 6, but those might not be a, quote, core top 6, right? These are guys who are your supplements, your supporting cast. Those are you can easily kind of mix and match, kind of bring in and out, because you want to be able to have that level of an open mind, Tom. You have to be able to take a look and say, okay, this didn't work out, so we're going to try this guy instead and see if he fits our system, see if he fits the schedule, if he has a chemistry with these players. That's it, because that's also huge. It's gonna go down to the future when this team is in the playoffs. Chemistry on these lines will make so much of a difference.
It absolutely will. And it's funny, Robin. The reason we say to people, "Hey, make us your first listen every day," and we talk about people, becoming our everydayers. Why? Because they get familiar with us, and that's why in the next segment, I'm going to talk about something and a big reason why I check the no box on this, and people will understand why if they've been an everydayer for a while. If not, you're wondering where the hell Tom's going to go with this. But the point is, you talk about chemistry and being familiar and knowing these things, you get comfortable within that setup, right? I mean, we get comfortable talking to the audience and the folks who follow us along here, and we talk to each other and everybody around the hockey scene. You build that familiarity, that camaraderie. What does it do? It enables you to do your job better. And that is huge, because familiarity allows me, for instance, to feed Robin thought-provoking questions. Familiarity allows you at work, at whatever your job might be, to walk in and kind of know how to get things done, and know how to work with not only the easy to work with people, but the difficult to work with people. And so that's all of that is a hockey locker room microcosm. And so that growth is, last year was big, but I would have liked to have seen them face, not that the injuries weren't adversity, but it's not the same thing, because injuries, there's nothing you can do about it, and it can be an excuse. I say it's a reason, not an excuse, but it can be an excuse. Robin, I'm talking about adversity on the ice. I'm talking about starting to come back from those 5-1 thumpings, but in the middle of that game, not the next game, not the next week, not going into a low patch. So, all right, I want to get to the one reason why I'm checking no on, I think the rebuild is exactly where it needs to be, because there's kind of one major stumbling block left. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño, Locked on Mammoth. Thanks for joining us. Tell your friends. Let's get them to listen to us first thing each and every single day when it comes to the Utah Mammoth as well. And smash that like button if you're over on the YouTube side. Robin, the everydayers already know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, okay.
They are not set in net yet. They're not. And the goaltending is not where I want it to be. Not that it can't get there with the currently assembled cast of characters. And once again, Connor Ingram, question mark, we do not know. Connor Ingram has shown the ability to be an NHL goaltender, but also I believe Connor Ingram is doing the right thing and taking care of himself first. Huge. Vitek Vanacek is now there in that backup role. And as we've talked about, in Veggie we trust this year and for the next subsequent several years with a big contract. Let's go back through the history. 3 seasons ago had what appeared to be a breakout season. 2 seasons ago had a bit of a clunker. Didn't look so good, lost the starting job to Ingram. Last year, once again, injury or not, Veg was the better goaltender. Better numbers, looked like heading into his late 20s, had matured, had arrived, and has been rewarded with a contract based on the promise of continued improvement. But Robin, this is where I'm yet to be convinced. And one of the biggest things that, if you want to know how important goaltending is, people are going to be fast to blame other reasons, but the Edmonton Oilers did not win the Stanley Cup because of goaltending. Their goaltending let them down. Were they in other games? Yes, but when they got smashed 5-1, when they gave up 3 goals in the first period, when they're playing from behind, and look, some of that is credit to Florida, but some of that is a negative against the Edmonton Oilers. Their defense wasn't good enough, and their goaltending.
If you want to add the goaltending and a little bit extra added to the goaltending aspect, Tom, Florida had it done right. Sergei Bobrovsky might be old at this point, but he's still a top-level goaltender.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Look, that contract looked terrible in the beginning, but now it looks brilliant.
everyone was screaming at Florida, why are you paying an old goaltender $10 million a year? But
well, 2 Stanley Cups later. And there's the argument, Robyn. Like, it seems like goaltenders, I'll say in the last 10 or 15 years, it used to be a goaltender was supposed to peak 24, 25, 26. Now it's 29, 30, 31, 32 even, which is why I have hope that this contract for Veg carries him right through that big peak. I hope that is the case, but I'm yet to be convinced. Now, a healthy defense can make your goaltender look good. Some supremely average goaltenders have won Stanley Cups. I'm talking about Corey Crawford, Antti Niemi, who was the one with Colorado, signed with Seattle, Grubauer, just the supremely average goaltenders. Won Stanley Cups because their team had puck possession numbers, could play defense, kept the puck away. But Matt Murray. Yep, and I mean, geez, the Penguins, they pretty much were dressing just about anybody that year. But that
year made me so upset.
Yeah. not that is personal to you.
No, absolutely not.
You've got no thoughts about that whatsoever. But I really need to see that, Robyn. I think the forwards, out of every group, I like the forwards the best, which is saying something because the defense is pretty stout. But I like the forwards the best. I love where the forwards are.
The forward core really we have like set. This forward core is set, I think. I mean, we're going to have, again, the mix and matches, but that core is going to be so good.
Yeah, I really like where they're at. I like the acquisition of Peterka. I think the top 6 is now one of the best top 6 in the NHL. So from that standpoint of the rebuild, I love it. But now team defense, and also, first of all, stay healthy, please, defense. But second of all, now it's just the elimination of the mistakes. And Robyn, this year, I think we're going to see if it's really coaching. This team should make the playoffs. On paper, they are now a playoff team. On paper, they are at least 8th in the Western Conference to me, if not better than that. So I think this year, the seat might be a little warm for Andre Tourigny heading in. But where is this rebuild now is the focus of the show. So to close it up, Robyn, what are your thoughts on where this rebuild is right now? Do you like it?
I do. I remain confident in Bill Armstrong. Like, so far, he has yet to do, I guess I've said it before, so far, he's yet to do anything that has severely disappointed me. There have been head scratchers. There have been, even like chin scratchers. Like, interesting move. Okay, I want to see how this plays out. But nothing that's been like, dude, Bill, what on earth are you doing? I have not had that. And to me, I think that overall that's a win. And to, based off the skill trajectory of the team, of the players that have been drafted in the last 4 years. And I'll mention them again in Dylan Guenther, in Logan Cooley, Maverick Lamoureux, Dmitry Shimashev, Daniel Boot, Tija Ginla, looking a little bit promising, coming off of injury. So we'll still have to see where that goes. But things have been looking promising and moving in all the right directions.
I agree with you in that I think a lot of this, the goings and comings of the last couple of years have made me feel pretty good. Again, I voiced my concern about the goaltending, and it's not even so much that I don't think they're good enough. It's that I think that they really need to prove themselves now. So my jury is out there. But as far as where they are, I said last year, heading into last year, if they overachieved, they'd make the playoffs. Well, they didn't. And they also had some issues along the way. And they didn't make the playoffs, and I was not surprised. This year, they're a playoff team. And they have to be a playoff team this year. I want to see them get in. I want to see them do some damage. And I really want to see what this team is capable of. And Robyn, I think one other guy that we really haven't talked about that much, but I do think merits a mention as well in the up-and-comers is Cole Beaubois. I think he's done a lot of work to get bigger, stronger physically. So I'm excited about where the team's going. But again, we talk about these youngsters, these draft picks, development camp. That's 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Where this team is right now on the ice in the NHL is what I'm concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're taking the steps in the right direction. So I'm curious to know what the fans think. What do you guys think about where this team is? Is this Mammoth team moving fast enough for you? Is it too slow? Is it just right? Which porridge bowl are we drinking from here? Robyn,
Are you with Team Tom on is this year playoff or bust?
Yeah, it is for me. So you can disagree with me. That's fine. And if you want to disagree with me, you can find me on Blue Sky at Tom Talks, on Twitter at Callahan on Air. Robyn, if they just want like all the happiness that you bring on social media, where do they find you?
You can find me personally at Robyn_Leaño on Twitter. It's Robyn with a Y_Leano. I'm also on Blue Sky, not very active over there, but you can still feel free to interact with me there at Robyn Ice Time. The podcast, you can find us everywhere at Locked On Mammoth.
And so that is another episode in the books. We appreciate you being here. Hey, drop some comments in there as well. Not only your thoughts on the rebuild, but also what you'd love to hear us talk about coming up this summer. We've got plenty of time and room to roam. We're going to be covering plenty of different topics. And we always love hearing from you folks. Your thoughts on the podcast are always welcome. Thanks so much for being a part of Locked On Mammoth.